A gift meant to bring joy. In December of 2013, the Carrillo family of Houston, Texas was enjoying a simple, joyful Christmas morning. Snow was rare, but inside the warm home, laughter echoed as kids unwrapped presents. Among the gifts was a shiny, smiling, frozen Elsa doll, fresh from shelves wrapped in pink paper, and destined for the youngest daughter, Aurelia. Like thousands of other families that year, frozen fever was everywhere. The Elsa doll could sing "Let It Go" when you pressed a button. It lit up, it talked. It was just another toy. Or so they believed. For the first year, Elsa was simply that, always toy. She spoke in English like the instructions promised, singing with the familiar voice of Idina Menzel. Aurelia carried her everywhere, to school, to the store, to bed. The family never once imagined that this plastic doll would become the center of one of the most bizarre and terrifying haunted object cases in recent American history. But as 2014 faded, so did the doll's innocence. In early 2015, the doll's voice inexplicably changed. Without anyone switching a setting or pushing any hidden button, Elsa started speaking entirely in Spanish. The family was confused. There was no language switch on the doll. The manual never said anything about bilingual features, and yet there she was, singing and speaking Spanish flawlessly every single time she was activated. Still, the Carrillos brushed it off. Maybe it was a glitch. Toys do that sometimes, don't they? It wasn't until 2018 that things took a terrifying turn. Aurelia, now older, had lost interest in Elsa. The doll sat untouched in a toy bin for months. One day, while cleaning out the closet, the mother picked up the doll and realized it was still speaking Spanish, but louder now and more frequently. Out of curiosity and concern, she flipped it over and opened the battery compartment. It was completely empty. There were no batteries inside. Still, the doll kept talking. Frightened, the mother placed the doll in a garbage bag and put it out with the trash. She watched the collectors haul it away. The family breathed a little easier that night, but just a week later, as they returned from a short vacation, the doll was back, inside the house. Sitting near the back door, mud-caked but smiling, Elsa had returned. No one in the family had retrieved it. No one else had a key. But there she was. Determined to be rid of it once and for all, the family took more drastic steps. The father dug a hole in the backyard and buried Elsa deep underground, wrapped tightly in plastic, sealed with tape, and secured in a garbage bag. Then, he covered the pit with soil, stones, and a slab of wood. For 2 weeks there was silence. No singing, no Spanish, no laughter from the shadows. Then, one morning, Elsa was back, this time on Aurelia's bed. Aurelia began to cry herself to sleep. She refused to go into her room alone. The once beloved character of her childhood was now a source of nightmares. She said Elsa's eyes were moving, that the doll whispered to her at night, not just singing, but saying her name. The mother contacted the doll manufacturer but received no help. "It's just a toy," they said. But the Carrillos knew better. This was not mechanical malfunction. This was not imagination. Something had taken over. In January 2020, the mother decided enough was enough. She mailed the doll without a return address to a friend of hers in Minnesota. He was a military man, skeptical of the supernatural, and agreed to take it in for the sake of his friend's peace. He taped the box shut, recorded the arrival, and placed Elsa in his garage. Since then, she hasn't returned to Houston, but the mother reports strange dreams, cold spots, music faintly playing from nowhere. And every year on the date of Elsa's original arrival, the doorbell rings. No one there. As the story went public in early 2020, media outlets began reporting on the haunted Elsa doll of Houston. Social media users flooded the family with messages, some in fear, some in mockery. Paranormal investigators begged for a chance to examine the doll, but the family refused. They just wanted to forget. Still, the story wouldn't go away. Elsa had become more than a doll. She was a symbol of corrupted innocence, a reminder that not everything for children is as pure as it seems. Experts in the paranormal world speculated, was the doll possessed? Was it a dybbuk, a haunted conduit? Or perhaps the emotional energy of a child's intense attachment turned it into something more. Toy experts couldn't explain the voice change or how it operated without batteries. Some said it was all a hoax, but if that's true, why did the family seem so desperate to be rid of it? Even though the physical doll was gone, the house never felt the same. The Carrillos described cold spots in the hallway, flickering lights, and strange static bursts on the television, especially during scenes from Frozen. At first, they tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was just anxiety, trauma, a lingering fear left over from the ordeal. But when the kitchen radio began playing Let It Go at 3 a.m. without being plugged in, the mother knew that Elsa hadn't left entirely. Maybe the object was gone, but whatever had inhabited it still clung to the family. So Aurelia, now nearly 10, began to have terrifying, vivid nightmares. In one recurring dream, she was standing in her bedroom doorway while Elsa, frozen-eyed and cracked, stood at the foot of her bed, her mouth open, but no sound coming out. In another, she said Elsa's voice came from inside the walls, whispering not in Spanish or English, but something else, a language she didn't recognize, but still somehow understood. "She says I belong to her," Aurelia whispered one morning, too afraid to look at the closet. A family under siege. The family dynamics began to unravel. The father, once the skeptic, started sleeping in the living room. The mother kept Sage near every doorway. Aurelia refused to enter her own room and eventually began wetting the bed again out of fear. Guests mentioned feeling watched in the hallway. One family friend claimed to hear humming from the bathroom and nearly broke their lease after staying over. Everyone felt it. Something was watching, and it wasn't finished. Their electronics, TV, phones, tablets, began to malfunction without warning. Screens would freeze, voices would echo strangely, and devices powered off during the exact time Elsa would normally speak. But the most terrifying experience came one night when the security camera inside the living room captured a dark figure, short, childlike, and slow-moving, passing in front of the couch. No one had been awake at that hour, yet the timestamp and the footage were real. They deleted it immediately, but the father kept a backup, just in case. The stress began to bleed into their lives outside the home. Aurelia began therapy for sleep and anxiety issues. The mother developed high blood pressure. The father lost focus at work and crashed his vehicle one day while listening to the Frozen soundtrack playing on the radio. It had turned on without him realizing. A medical emergency? Maybe. But the timing was too perfect, too cruel. It felt like whatever was connected to Elsa was punishing them for letting her go. In early 2020, after local news picked up the story, the haunted Elsa doll case went viral. TikTok creators made dramatizations, Reddit threads exploded with theories. Paranormal YouTubers called it one of the most legitimate haunted toy cases ever recorded. Yet amidst the memes and the hysteria, one detail stuck out. No one could explain how the doll returned after being buried, deep, wrapped and sealed in plastic, and made it inside the locked house again. And not once, twice. Paranormal researchers suggested that the doll had become a focal object, or conduit, a thing that channels spiritual energy and becomes a bridge between dimensions. Others claimed it was a form of residual haunting, where intense emotional energy, especially from a child, imprints onto objects. Some even said that Elsa had unintentionally become a tulpa, a physical form created by belief and fear. But none could answer the real question: what wanted to come through Elsa? As the story spread, other parents came forward. From different states, different backgrounds, different dolls. One woman in Oregon reported that her daughter's Elsa doll began singing at night, even though it was turned off. Another, in Michigan, claimed the doll's eyes turned black one day and refused to light up again. A father in Kansas uploaded footage of his Elsa doll laughing uncontrollably on a loop until he smashed it with a hammer. The clips vanished from YouTube soon after. Were they all hoaxes? Or was this doll part of something bigger? The friend in Minnesota who received the mailed Elsa doll kept her in his garage as promised. He even tied her to a chair and recorded a doll cam just for fun. But after a month, he noticed something strange. The temperature around the doll was always several degrees colder, even though the rest of the garage was normal. One day, his tracking devices, meant to monitor motion, picked up movement, a shuffle, a slight tilt, and then a full 180-degree head turn while the camera flickered. He mailed the footage to the Carrillos, then cut off all contact. Aurelia's mother awoke one night to the sound of something rolling across the hallway floor. She stepped outside her room and froze. At her feet was a small, blue, doll-sized shoe, torn and muddy, identical to the Elsa doll's original design. But the doll was gone. She looked up and saw no one. The windows were locked, the doors unopened. Her husband hadn't stirred. Aurelia was asleep. And yet, something had been there. Something still was. Aurelia began having the same nightmare repeatedly. Elsa standing in the center of her room, surrounded by fire, her plastic melting, but her smile never fading. Each time, Elsa would whisper, "You shouldn't have let me go," and then walk toward her, even as her feet dissolved into the flames. Aurelia would wake up screaming, drenched in sweat. Her mother stopped letting her watch any Disney movies. Even just hearing the Frozen theme made Aurelia shake uncontrollably. The damage had crossed into her subconscious, and it wasn't letting go. At school, teachers noticed changes in Aurelia's behavior. Once bubbly and social, she had become withdrawn and hyper-aware of her surroundings. She avoided group activities and began drawing disturbing pictures, always of a blue figure with glowing eyes and long cracks through its face. "She's drawing Elsa," her teacher whispered during a parent-teacher conference. "But something's wrong with the way she sees her." The counselor recommended further psychological evaluation, but her mother already knew the cause, and it wasn't anything they could medicate. Months later, the family received a letter. It was from the man in Minnesota, the one who had taken the Elsa doll in. The letter was short. "She's still here," it read, "and I don't think she wants to stay much longer." He didn't leave a return address, only a postmark. There was something deeply unsettling about the handwriting. It was shaky, as if written in fear or illness. The mother tucked it away in a drawer. She didn't want Aurelia to ever see it. She didn't want to give the doll that kind of power again. In the months following, the family experienced a new, terrifying pattern. Aurelia's closet door would open by itself, always between 2 and 3 a.m. The parents tried replacing the hinges, locking it, even blocking it with furniture. But each time, they would wake to find the door wide open and the smell of burnt plastic lingering in the air. Once, her father stood guard with a video camera. At exactly 2:47 a.m., the closet door unlatched on its own and creaked open slowly. There was no wind, no string, just darkness, and a faint sound of a music box playing "Let It Go." One chilling evening, the family noticed every clock in the house had frozen at exactly 3:11 a.m. Digital clocks, microwave, phones, wall clocks, even the battery-operated kitchen timer, all time stopped. When it resumed, about 5 minutes later, the lights flickered and the fire alarm went off despite there being no smoke. Aurelia ran from her room screaming, claiming she saw Elsa standing at the foot of her bed again. The mother called her sister and begged for a priest. "This isn't about a doll anymore," she sobbed. "This is something much worse." With no other options, they allowed a spiritual cleansing of the home. A local medium performed a ritual using sage, salt, and prayer. During the ritual, Aurelia convulsed and fainted, and when she awoke, she said, "Elsa's not gone. She's just hiding." The medium admitted she felt a childlike energy that had turned malignant over time, possibly something attached to the doll, but now no longer bound to it. "It has learned," she said gravely. "It's watching, waiting for the next invitation." Online reaction began to change. What started as intrigue turned into mockery. TikTok users challenged each other to summon Elsa. Teenagers bought frozen dolls and tried to haunt them as a joke. But soon stories started to circulate, users reporting weird behavior. Lights going out during live streams, dolls moving slightly in video frames. Some even claimed their Elsa dolls began singing in Spanish, just like the Carrillos. It had gone from one isolated horror to a viral urban legend that was bleeding into reality. One morning, the Carrillos received an unexpected package. No name, no return address. Inside was a small box, and within it, carefully wrapped in a velvet cloth, was a piece of burnt plastic shaped like a foot, identical to the ones on the Elsa doll. Aurelia screamed when she saw it. The mother buried it immediately, sobbing, begging whatever force this was to leave her family alone. But it was too late. Something had followed them, and now it knew where they lived again. Their family dog Luna began acting erratically, barking at corners, growling at empty hallways. Then one night she vanished. No broken doors, no open windows, just gone. A week later, the family found her collar on the kitchen floor, still buckled shut. The house felt colder after that, as if the one source of protection they had left had been taken from them, as if the thing inside their home had claimed its first victim. In late 2022, nearly a decade after the Elsa doll first entered their lives, the mother posted an anonymous online confession on a paranormal forum. She recounted the entire story in vivid detail, begging for help. "We gave her away. She came back. We buried her. She returned. We mailed her away. She left, but the fear stayed. The nightmares stayed. The voices stayed. What do you do when the evil is no longer in the doll, but in the air around your child?" The post ended with a chilling final sentence. "I think she's waiting for my daughter to turn 13. As 2023 crept in, Aurelia's 12th birthday came and went with eerie calm. But the mother couldn't shake the looming dread. What if this entity, whatever it was, had been waiting all these years for something? A moment of vulnerability? A symbolic threshold? The closer Aurelia came to her 13th birthday, the more intense the disturbances became. Unexplained bruises appeared on her legs. She woke up with tangled hair and scratches on her arms, and always, she said she felt like someone was standing behind her, breathing softly. One afternoon, while brushing her teeth, Aurelia froze. In the mirror behind her own reflection, she saw a familiar pale face. It wasn't a hallucination. She didn't blink. The reflection held. It was Elsa. Not the friendly doll, not the movie character, but something broken, something aged, a porcelain white grin and wide, cracked eyes. She screamed, and her mother ran in, but the mirror showed nothing. Yet for hours afterward, the mirror was cold to the touch, icy, like it had been frozen. Out of desperation, the family allowed a respected paranormal investigator from Dallas to visit. He brought EMF detectors, thermal cameras, and motion sensors. For most of the evening, the house was quiet, nothing unusual, until he entered Aurelia's room. All devices malfunctioned at once. His digital voice recorder, completely erased. His infrared sensor glitched and shut off. The only sound he recorded that entire night came just before he fled the room. A soft child's voice whispering, "Do you want to build a snowman?" The investigator returned the next day, but not to help, to warn. "I don't know what that is," he said, shaken. "But it's not a ghost. It's something that wears a memory like a mask. It used the doll. Now it uses your daughter's fear, and that is feeding it." He told them to stop acknowledging it, stop talking to it, burn anything connected to Frozen. But it was already too late. It had found a host, and it wasn't going to leave quietly. Objects began disappearing, small ones at first, hairbrushes, jewelry, books, then kitchen knives. Every few days, something new would vanish, only to return days later in strange places: the attic, under the bed, the backyard. Each time, the object was covered in dirt or scratch marks or melted at the edges. It was as though the house itself was turning inside out, swallowing its own contents and spitting them back, corrupted. Phone calls began dropping unexpectedly. But worse, when the family checked voicemail, they'd hear something else. In between static were faint voices, sometimes humming. On one occasion, the mother listened to a voicemail from a missed call. It was her daughter's voice unmistakably, but twisted. "I missed you, Mommy," it said in a flat tone. "Can I come home now?" Aurelia had never made that call. She had been asleep in the other room. In a final effort to escape, the Carrillos packed their belongings and moved to a new home on the outskirts of Houston. New town, new school. They even changed phone numbers. For a few weeks, things were quiet, peaceful, but on the day they unpacked the last box, they found something that hadn't been packed. A blue fabric cape, burned at the edge, folded carefully inside a drawer that no one had touched. The doll had never left them. She had simply waited. They contacted a priest, not from the local diocese, but one who had handled exorcism cases before. He performed a full house blessing, using holy water, incense, and prayers in Latin. As he walked through Aurelia's room, the lights went out. The ceiling fan spun in reverse, and the priest doubled over in pain, vomiting on the floor. "I don't know what this is," he gasped, "but it's ancient. It doesn't fear God. It remembers something older." After the blessing, they painted over the entire room, hoping to start fresh. But as the new paint dried, dark symbols began to bleed through, marks that hadn't been visible before. Circles, crossed lines, a crude face with hollow eyes and stitched lips. They scrubbed, painted again. But the shapes kept returning, more vivid each time. It was as if the walls themselves were revealing what had always been there, just waiting to be seen. One night, Aurelia vanished. Her room was untouched, her window locked. No footprints, no sounds. For 5 hours the parents searched, called police, neighbors, everything. Then at dawn, they found her, curled in the attic, eyes open, unblinking, clutching something in her hand, a torn piece of blue plastic. Her lips were chapped, her voice hoarse. All she said was, "She said I belong to her now." After that night, Aurelia regressed. She stopped speaking entirely for 2 months, refused to be touched, sat for hours staring at the wall. Her drawings became darker, full of ash, broken limbs, and a towering doll with empty sockets. Doctors labeled it trauma, dissociative behavior. But the mother knew it was something else. Something had taken a piece of her daughter's soul, and it wore a familiar dress and crown. Following the viral exposure of the case, similar reports started coming in from across the country. Always frozen dolls, always unexplained language shifts, batteries removed, Spanish songs, dolls returning after disposal. A group of researchers began cataloging reports, noting over 127 similar cases between 2018 and 2023. But only the Carrillo case had endured for nearly a decade. Their case wasn't just a haunting, it had become a host story. Demonologists weighed in. Some believed the doll had acted as a mimic, a spiritual parasite that adopted the identity of something innocent, like Elsa, to bypass a child's natural defenses. Once invited in, it shed its skin and began anchoring itself through emotion. Joy, then fear, then trauma. And once it latched onto Aurelia, the doll became unnecessary. The entity no longer needed plastic. It had found something warmer, something human. One digital expert took voice recordings from the Elsa doll and ran them in reverse. What he found shocked him. Embedded under the song Let It Go were low, guttural frequencies, non-human. When isolated, the reversed voice seemed to say, "I see you, I hear you, you are mine." Experts dismissed it as pareidolia, but those who heard it felt their skin crawl. One podcast host suffered sleep paralysis for 3 nights after analyzing the clip. In one final attempt, the Carrillos contacted a spiritual shaman. The recommendation was clear: burn everything associated with Elsa, clothes, images, songs, drawings, anything tied to the doll's energy. They built a pit behind their new home and set the items aflame. For a moment, the smoke rose calmly, but then it twisted, shifting into a shape unmistakable, the silhouette of a girl in a long dress, her mouth open, screaming silently. The fire went cold. The grass around the pit never grew again. After the ritual, the house fell quiet. No more whispers, no more shadows. Aurelia slowly began speaking again. Her laughter returned. The mother dared to hope they were free. But one evening, while cleaning the attic, she found something that made her blood run cold. An old shoebox labeled Xmas 2013. Inside, a melted eye, half blue, with a single word scratched on the inside of the lid. Remember. To this day, the family lives in cautious peace. They avoid Disney entirely. No dolls in the house, no songs, no memories of 2013. but every year on Christmas Eve, Aurelia still wakes up at 3:11 a.m. She never cries, never speaks, just stares at the door, waiting, as if expecting someone or something. Her mother never asks what she sees. Some things are better left unspoken. No one knows what became of the original Elsa doll. The man in Minnesota never responded again. Some believe he destroyed it. Others claim it still exists, changing hands through the internet, cursed, watching, waiting for a new child. A few online stores reported mysteriously receiving old versions of the Elsa toy, ones never remanufactured, missing from inventory, worn, burned, still singing. Whether you believe the story or not, one thing is certain. It affected a real family, changed them forever. For them, Elsa isn't just a character. She's a warning, a presence, a name that holds power, a voice that doesn't fade in the wind. And for thousands who've heard the tale, she has become something darker, something we all recognize but never question, the mask of innocence that hides true horror. If you hear a toy speaking in the night, check the batteries. And if there are none, don't just run, don't just burn it. Ask yourself the real question: what invited it in? And what will it want when it decides to return?